Hello, friends. I'm Maggie Ostara. I'm a human design expert and a sovereignty mentor for awakening women in the Aquarian age. And if you've been following me for a while, I do regular human design transit reports where we're looking at how the transiting planets are intersecting with the human design mandala. And of course, this is largely the realm of astrology. And so in today's video, I'm going to unpack for you the relationship between human design and astrology as they relate to the kind of dynamic aspects of the system, which is how they change over time. Or rather, it's not so much that they change, it's how we experience our own natal chart changes over time based on the way that the transiting planets are activating different aspects of our charts. And it happens differently in the human design system than it does in the astrological system. And they each have something really beneficial to provide, and they're very complementary. So for our human design people, this will help you understand a little bit more about the role of astrology in human design. And for our astrology people who may find your way here, you'll get to understand how human design maybe can expand your understanding a little bit about the wheel and about this dynamic process of how we as human beings are relating to the cosmos and relating to the planets, and see if the human design way of doing that expands your understanding and see if you want to start to bring it in. So we're going to be looking at how you can utilize these systems and look at them in relation to your own natal chart, and then how it changes over time so that it's continually relevant for you. I've been doing human design transit reports for 5 years, and for a number of years I really focused on the transits of the sun and the earth. And more recently I've been looking a lot at the moons and also the outer planets, which is not something that's usually talked about a lot in human design. But so this is an influence of astrology in my understanding of human design. And I know a number of you have been very interested in it, so I thought I would unpack it a little bit for you so that you can understand it more deeply. Okay, let's go ahead and get started. If you're new to the human design transits, whether you're a human design person or an astrology person or somebody who's curious, I do have a video training called Understanding the Human Design Transits and a template that are yours for free. You can download them. The link will be down below in the description and also at the end of the video. And this is just a great, it's like a 20-minute video or something that'll just kind of get you situated. It doesn't go into huge depth, but it does help you get you situated, and a lot of people have found it helpful. I am working on a expanded program that is really looking at human design and astrology together, and this video today is really kind of an introduction to that. Okay, so let's go ahead and dive into looking at these two different systems together. So in this image, you can see there's the Human Design Mandala, which you may not be as familiar with. You're probably familiar with the body graph that's in the middle of the mandala. The mandala is actually the whole human design system in this one image. And it relates to the astrological wheel in the sense that it is the same of looking at the planets going around the wheel, whether it's the mandala or the astrological wheel. So in both of these images, the planets go around, okay, and they go through the different aspects. But it's different in each of the two different systems. And I'm going to show a more detail about how we put these two together. But before that, let's just take a note of when we look at the natal charts and kind of a person's human design or a person's astrology, right? The things that we tend to look at initially, like in human design, we look at type, strategy, authority, and then your profile and your incarnation cross. So those are very specific to human design. And then in astrology, we tend to look at the moon and the sun and the ascendant or your rising sign, right? So we're looking at those signs. And then we're also looking at a movement from the south node to the north node over the course of your life. And then you're also looking at your midheaven. Those are kind of some of the key attributes or the key aspects of astrology and human design. And so they're different from each other, and they don't actually even relate to each other all that much. So that's not the place so much where you want to look for alignments, but you can look into these to see how they kind of complement each other. So here with the transits, they're more compatible in certain ways. So in this image here, I've just got what I think of as kind of the key things that you want to look at to see how they're different. So let's dive into some specifics of the Human Design Mandala so that you know what you're looking at when you're gazing at this image. So around the outside of the mandala are the 64 hexagrams of the I Ching. Let's remember that Human Design draws on 4 different ancient wisdom traditions, and astrology is one of them, but also the I Ching, the Tree of Life from the Kabbalah, and the chakra system. And so all of those are kind of foundational bodies of knowledge that Human Design draws upon. So the 64 hexagrams of the I Ching are around the outside. Inside of that, you'll see numbers. Those numbers are the numbers of the gates, and they do relate to the I Ching. And so there's also 64 numbers, 64 gates that go around the outside. Each one of them is broken into 6 different lines, and so 64 times 6, you do the math on that, right? There's like 364 little ways of breaking up the mandala. But then you'll also see inside of that the astrological signs. So we do take note of the course of the year as it relates to the astrological signs as well. And then inside of that, you'll see these like pie marks. And those are the gates. And inside the gates, you'll see that there are planetary symbols. Okay, so in that sense, it's similar to the astrological wheel, is that we're looking at the kind of the progression of the planets around the mandala or around the wheel over the course of the year. And so where do they fall? Then in astrology, there's different terminology and they mean different things. So here, the 12 astrological signs are super important, okay? And then there's also the 12 houses. And so they relate to each other. Then there are planets that fall inside of the astrological signs and inside of the houses. And so those are all related to each other, but they're also all distinct. So they're kind of different layers of what you're looking at. And then we have sacred geometry, which is why you always see the lines in the middle of the astrological wheel. Astrology is very concerned with the sacred geometry. And that is one of the key places that it differs from Human Design in terms of the transits. We don't tend to talk about the sacred geometry in Human Design the way that we talk about them in astrology. So if we just look at these two together and compare them a little bit, we'll see that there are 12 astrological signs. There's 64 gates. And so there's about 5 to 6 gates per astrological sign. In addition to that, some of the gates actually straddle astrological signs. So, for example, in this last year, we've had Neptune, in particular, in the gate 25 in Human Design, which starts in Pisces and then moves into Aries. Okay, so it straddles Pisces and Aries, and Neptune has been traversing inside of that gate 25 over the course of this year and will continue through the first part of 2026. So in some ways, Human Design is more specific in terms of it breaking down this wheel into smaller increments, and smaller increments that have a lot of meaning, because the different gates each have a lot of meaning in the Human Design system. Now, I'm aware that in astrology, you have minutes and then seconds inside of each of the astrological signs. So it also breaks down to being much, much smaller. But they don't necessarily have the same, unless you're looking at the Sabian symbols, they don't have the same specific meaning of that particular minute inside of the progression of the sign. It's more if it's related to how different charts are relating to each other. Okay, so I'm gonna explain that in a minute. I'll show you, but this is a place where the emphasis is a little bit different. Now, the astrological wheel is a snapshot at birth of where the planets were, right, in the signs and in the houses, right? It's that one snapshot at birth. So there's one wheel. In human design, there's two wheels. We'll come back to that in a minute. So the dynamic part of astrology related to the chart is how are you embodying and expressing the different aspects of your chart. So it could be your sun, your moon, your ascendant in particular, whatever's happening on your midheaven. But it's true for any of the planets and how the planets are falling in different signs and how are you expressing that. Like, for example, I have Venus in Taurus, right? So how am I expressing my Venus and how am I expressing my Venus in Taurus? Okay, so that is a dynamic place and it can change over time, right? At different times in your life, you might express, Venus and Taurus in different ways. Then one of the ways that it's really dynamic in astrology is you're looking at how are the transiting planets, the planets like in this moment in time, for example, moving around that wheel. How are they activating planets in your natal chart? So it's when they come together on the same degrees or very similar within 3 degrees of the chart that they activate each other. Okay. And then there's like I said, there's all this different sacred geometry, right? That means a lot in astrology. Then in addition to that, there's an overall trajectory over the course of your life of moving from more of your south node orientation to your north node orientation. Your south node being what you brought in with you, and your north node being more of your destiny or what you're leaning into, what you're growing into. So that's an overall trajectory in astrology. And like I said, in addition, where the transiting planets are activating parts of your natal chart, and then of course the way that you're expressing any of these at any particular moment in time. Like in astrology, it's about how are you expressing any of the aspects of your own human design, right? Are you expressing them in a more empowered way or a more disempowered way or in a more shadow aspect? Those are the ways that I tend to talk about it. So that's similar to what we see in astrology is that there's a dynamic way that we are embodying and expressing any particular aspects of our charts at any particular time. And it can change over the course of your life. Of course, as we grow and we mature and we develop, right? We are going to express things differently. So this is similar in astrology and in human design. But one of the big differences regarding the transits for human design is that we tend to look at the places that are open in our charts, which means where there aren't planets, right? And how those get activated by the transiting planets, right? So that's quite different. In astrology, you're looking at where the planets are coming together. And in this one, you're looking at the new parts of the mandala that are getting activated for you because there aren't planets there. And I'm going to show you how that works in just a second. Then the other piece that is different than astrology, it's not so much in the nodes, although we do look at that in human design. It's more about your incarnation cross and how you live into your incarnation cross over the course of your life, because that's something you just kind of expand into as you grow and mature. So there are aspects that are similar, right? But they're somewhat different. If you're familiar with the human design chart, you know that there are black and red that are all through the body graph, and that there are also 2 different lines of numbers and symbols on the right-hand side. You'll see that there are, we start with the sun and then we go all the way down through the planets, and there's a number there, and that tells you which gate that's the sun is, or any of the planets are in. And then there's another number, which is the line. So in this one, it's the 52. The sun is in the 52 in the 3rd line. Okay, so it gets very specific. And then on the other side, we have, it comes from another snapshot, and I'll talk about that in a sec. But you can see there's a whole nother set of numbers that mirrors the ones that are black. And this is from a snapshot in time 88 days prior to when you were born. But it's very much the same in terms of the progression of the planets. Okay, let's just take a look at this piece with human design having 2 different snapshots. So in this other image here, I pulled apart those 2 different moments in time. So with the black numbers there and the black that shows up in the gates in the body graph, that's what we call the personality or the conscious, or sometimes it's called the mind, depending on the software that you use. And this is the snapshot of when you were born. Okay, when the planets were when you were born. On the other side, it's called the design or the unconscious, or sometimes called the body. And this is approximately 88 days prior to birth. And then we take a snapshot there. And then human design takes them and puts them together, and that's what creates the body graph. So it actually comes from 2 different snapshots in time. and they put them together, and that creates your personal mandala. And that's why you have red symbols and you have black symbols inside of the mandala to show you whether it is the moment of birth or 88 days prior. And I'm not going to go into detail about what that means right now because that's a whole other deep dive. But just to say, you tend to be more aware of what is in the black numbers, and the red numbers are more. That's why they're called the unconscious. They tend to be a little less in your awareness, but you can get to know them over the course of your life. So now the thing when we're going through the human design transits is we're looking for the white aspects. Okay, the way that the transiting planets are activating the parts that are white in your chart, not the part where there are already planets, which is what happens in astrology. Okay, following me here? Okay. So I want to give you an example here. So on the left-hand side, you'll see this is a birth chart. Okay, and on the right-hand side is a transit chart. So when we do a transit, we don't pull the red side. Okay, we just pull this moment in time because we're not going back those 88 days. That has to do with a person, right? It has to do with how the fetus evolves while it's in the womb. So when we're looking at a date of a transit, it's not the same thing. Same if you're looking at any date, like if you're looking at the date of the birth of my business, right? I have the human design chart of my business, right? But it's not a person. So I don't look at the 88 days prior for my business. So, the birth of an organization or the birth of a country or, all kinds of things. If it's a person, we look at the red side, but if it's anything other than a person, we don't look at the red. Okay. We just look at the black. And so with professional software, you can pull just the transiting side. So we take the transiting side and we see, oh, how does it interact with the birth chart, okay, or the natal chart? And what we're looking for is where is their new definition. Now, definition basically means what's colored in. And you'll see it's always going to be black when you're looking at a transit chart. Okay, it's always going to be black. So if you take a look at this, and for those of you who might not be as familiar with human design, just hang in here with me a minute. I'll aim to explain this as well as I can. There is a you see that there's all the human design centers that come up and down the central channel, and then a couple of that are on the sides. So there is a square in the birth chart down towards the bottom, which is white. That's known as the sacral center. People who have that colored in, it would be red, like it is in this transit chart, and that would make them a generator. So this person does not have a defined sacral, and they are a projector. Okay, so this is a projector chart. But if you look at the transit chart, you can see that red square is lit up because this channel, the 3420, is lit up in this particular transit. It's actually even in the incarnation cross, which is a particularly important part of the human design. So if you put this over onto the projector chart, basically what that'll mean is that person is going to have the access to this energy of this 3420, which she doesn't have at all in her chart, and also to the 10, which is going into the G center here, right? So all three of these gates are going to be lit up, and all of this kind of complex wiring is lit up. And so during the time of this transit, this projector is going to get all this manifesting generator energy, because this particular channel is known as the channel of the manifesting generator. And so there's a lot of power coming from that sacral center, coming right directly up into the throat, and the throat is the center for activation and manifestation and expression. And so this projector during this particular transit is going to get a lot more energy to be able to express themselves, to be able to activate things, and to be able to manifest during this particular transit. Now, this is a Sun-Earth transit. Like I said, it's in those top two numbers. It's the 3420 right there, and it's going to last about 5 or 6 days. And so this particular projector, if she knows that this transit is happening, she could be like, oh, I'm going to have all this manifesting generator energy, and I'm going to utilize it during this time. So this is one of the benefits of knowing how the transits work, is you can see, oh, am I going to get extra energy during this time? It is helpful to know, obviously, what your human design is. I know there have been a number of different transits, particularly in this last year, where I have an open throat. My throat is usually white. And so when I have a transit like this, I get a lot of extra energy to express myself and to manifest and to create. Okay. And so that's been really powerful for me. And if you have an open G center, for example, when you have a transit like this one here, you start to get your heart all lit up and you get a consistent energy from that heart during that time. So one of the things that the ways that human design understands some of these things is that what's colored in your chart, okay, what we call defined, what you'll see in either one of these charts, you're going to have consistent access to that energy during, if it's in your birth chart, pretty much through your life, unless you're rejecting it or suppressing it, which people can do. But generally speaking, you're going to have consistent access to that energy. And then the transits come in and give you new energy to places in your chart that you don't always have. And then you can start to have all kinds of different things, the different wiring hooking up with each other. Like I said, with this particular projector, she's got, that extra energy coming in here. In that first example, it's like we're just taking this wiring and then putting it on her chart. But there's another really interesting thing that happens in human design with what we call hanging gates. Now, I want to show you this particular example. So there is the gate 43, which is right here at the top of the throat, which is in the birth chart. Okay. And then in the transit chart, which is over there on the right hand side, its mate, which is the 23, which is up here on the ajna. Ajna's like this, right? Throat's like this, and there's a channel right here. Okay. And on the birth chart, the lower part of the channel is lit up. And in the transit chart, the upper part is lit up. And so when this transiting planet comes in, right, and lights up the 23, then all of a sudden you've got this channel, complete channel going here. And what that's going to do for this projector is it's going to define her ajna, right? She's already got her throat defined. It's already colored in. But then she's going to have this new energy coming in with a defined ajna, which means she's going to have her thinking is going to be strong, but it's being lit up by the 4323, which is highly intuitive. It's a highly intuitive channel. So she's going to get a real boost in her ability to be able to receive and also express her intuitive downloads during this particular transit. Now let's just add another layer here, which is to say that, like we said, we had the 43 was in her birth chart, right? And so the 23 is being lit up by Venus. So this is a Venus transit. So then we've also got the divine feminine coming in here, giving another layer of flavor to that highly intuitive gate that's happening here, right? So but highly intuitive divine feminine energy is going to be coursing through this person's energy field during this particular transit. And the Venus transit actually lasts a little bit longer than the Sun transit. It's a 7 to 10 days, so she's going to get it a little bit longer. Then you can imagine when we have one of the outer planets that is lighting up a gate, like I mentioned with the gate 25, that Neptune has been there like all year and it's going to be there through kind of middle of next year, right? That's a long transit. And for me, that actually completes a channel for me and defines my will center. So I have a long period of time where my will center is being defined, like over a year. So it depends on how long the transits are and how much they're going to impact you. Okay, so that's basically your human design aspect. So let's go ahead and take a look at what happens with astrology, because it is definitely different. In astrology, you're going to look at your birth chart or your natal chart, right? And your natal chart never changes. What changes is where the transits are bringing along other planets or the same planet in this case, and it's going to activate what's happening in your natal chart. So here, it's so interesting because I just pulled these at random. But the top one is a birth chart. The bottom one is a transit chart. And you can see here, you might need to blow it up, take a screenshot, blow it up, that actually in the transiting chart, we've got a Jupiter return, because Jupiter in the natal chart is at 23 degrees of Aries. And then in this transiting chart, it's also at 23 degrees of Aries, which means that Jupiter is back to its same place in the natal chart. So this is an activation of Jupiter. It's a Jupiter return. And so there's an extra strong emphasis here on Jupiter and Jupiter in Aries. And the question that you get to ask then is, well, where am I now with the energy of Jupiter in Aries? Remember, the Jupiter expands wherever it is, right? So it's expanding that energy of, sovereignty, agency, let's make things happen kind of energy. That's Aries. And then Jupiter is going to expand it. So this person came in with it. But then at this particular time, right, it comes in 12-year cycles, right? Because Jupiter is in a sign for 12 years. And this is like pretty much exact on that 23rd degree. It's like where, how has that happened for you over cycles of time? And that's one of the things that astrology is really strong on, is to say, let's go back 12 years and say, where were you there? And 12 years before that, and 12 years before that, right? How has Jupiter been activating this part of your chart over the course of your life? So that's like a return, right? That's the same planet coming back to the same degree in the same sign as it was in your astrology chart. But then there are other ways that this works, right? Which is where a transiting planet will activate a different planet in your chart. So again, we have the same birth chart and the same transit chart here, astrology chart. But here we've got Mercury at 27 degrees of Aquarius. And then in the transit chart, we've got Mars at 27 degrees of Aquarius. So here we've got Mars really activating that natal Mercury. Mars, similar to Aries in a way, right? Because that Mars rules Aries, right? That's still that agency, that sovereignty, the like, let's make stuff happen, right? It's going to come in, it's going to activate that Mercury. And so Mercury is our communication. It's going to give that Mercury a more like sense of let's make it happen. Let's get it out there in the world. Let's like, expand our ability to make our lives the way that we want them to, and to do that through communication. And then of course, this is an Aquarius, right? And here we are in the age of Aquarius. We're beginning into the age of Aquarius, which is also about sovereignty, but it's about sovereignty in the sanctity of community and aligned with cosmic consciousness. And so all of this in its highest expression is going to really be connected to this new world energy that is emerging, that we are helping to co-create right with the cosmos. So for this person during this transit, right, they're getting a lot of extra energy for them to really lean into how they experience Aquarian energy, and to see the way that these two different planets, their different flavors, interact, and to see how they can really support each other rather than coming into conflict, because sometimes the planets can do that. Now that's a simplistic version, right? Because in astrology, you would also look at all of the sacred geometry with all of the other planets and so on, right? So this is a simplified version, but just to see that astrology, again, is looking at where does a transiting planet activate a planet in your natal chart, right? What house is it in? What sign is it in? Whereas in human design, we're looking at where the transiting planets activating new definition for us, creating new experiences in the human design mandala. Now, what I will say, and this is not part of how I was trained to understand the human design transits, but having done this for years now, and really been following more and more of the astrology, because the astrology has been so off the charts for the last couple of years, right? I mean, we're in an unprecedented time in astrology, which is why I've started to learn more astrology and started to bring it in more, because I think that it is really a signpost for us as we're moving into the Aquarian age. For those of us who are really waking up and evolving and grabbing a hold of our spiritual development strongly during this time, astrology is really helpful, and it really helps expand those of us who are more human design oriented to see how can we be really leaning into what's happening with the astrology as well. So one thing that I've started to look at, and you can play around with this, I am a big believer that, in experimentation. Okay, I'm a big believer that you want to try this out for yourself and see. And even Rahu Rahu, who is the founder of Human Design, called it an empirical system. Well, an empirical system means that we learn it through experience. That's what that means. So you're also authorized to find out what it means through experience. You don't have to just listen to what I say or what any other human design expert says. You always can run this through your own system and see what resonates for you. And so I've done this with the transits and with astrology. And I do think that there is an extra benefit that you have when you have, like, let's just say with the sun, right? Like, for example, I do have the 34 defined in my human design chart, in my natal chart. Okay. So I've already got that there. And then the sun comes along, like we just saw in that transiting chart. The sun comes along and lights up the gate 34. Well, let's say I'm not expressing my gate 34 in the best possible way. Let's say that it's known as the busy gate. It's the gate of power. Let's say I was really disconnected to my power, really didn't like it, and was suppressing that, right? And then you learn, wow, I've got the gate of power, but I don't feel like I've really got it. Well, when the sun is lighting up that gate 34, I mean, the sun is a huge impact on all of us, right? Obviously, the sun is what makes our whole solar system. And so you have an extra energy to help you go, I want to shift my relationship to how I'm expressing my gate 34. And so that's an example of how you can look at, kind of put them together and say, I'm going to utilize that energy of that sun during this particular transit, and I'm going to change the way that I'm experiencing that definition in my human design chart. Now, there are people, you can hear human design experts out there who will tell you that you can't change that. I do not agree with that. Okay. I am not in that camp. And so it's not judgment. I just don't agree. Okay. I don't see it that way. It's not my experience. It's not when I lean into it and I feel into it and I run it through my own system. I don't agree with that because I think we can change anything, really. It takes more work. And that's why I think it's a benefit when the sun is moving through or the earth is moving through in particular, but really you could look at this with any of the planets, but those are such huge influences on us, right? Is if you can lean into that energy and really kind of say, okay, I'm going to lean into that sun and I'm going to change the way I experience this. And you might want to look at, okay, I've been rejecting my power. I was taught that my power was not okay. I want to reclaim my power. I work with a lot of women at midlife who are really reclaiming their power, right? This could be a way that you want to reclaim your power around something. You're like, I was taught that was not okay. Part of the deconditioning process is to say, no, wait a minute. I'm going to own my power. And you could lean in when the sun is in that particular gate to help you to do that. So in summary, astrology is one of the 4 ancient wisdom traditions, okay, bodies of knowledge, ancient, time-tested bodies of knowledge that human design draws upon, okay? It's generally understood somewhat differently in human design than it would in astrology. But I also think bringing in some of the ways that astrology operates can help us understand human design better and help us to also grow and evolve ourselves more. And that's why I bring them together. And so in this video, it's been my intention to help you to see as you're working with the transits, because the transits are what make your natal chart dynamic, right? And otherwise it's kind of static. It does change depending on how you express the aspects of it, like we talked about earlier, but the transits make it really dynamic. And that's why I also like to present this for all of you, because I think that it gives you some signposts and some guidance and some ways of understanding how the planets are guiding us during this time. And for me, that's just such a great support while we're in this time of great transition, this time of great change, while, the old world is dropping away and we are really leaning in and becoming co-creators of the new earth. So I would really love to hear from you down in the comments. Like, how does this land for you if you're a human design person? How does the astrology land? Does it make sense to you? Or are there ways that you would like me to explain it more? I am looking at doing some other videos about human design and astrology and kind of talking about how you can use them in a compatible way. So I would love to hear from you. If any of you are more astrological minded, did the human design explanation make sense to you so that you can see now about the black and the red and how that comes together and all of that? Are there other things you'd like me to talk about? I'd love to hear from you about that. And also just any of the ahas that you got, that what your takeaways are. It really helps me to understand the value of what it is that I'm offering you. And if there are things that you're like, ooh, I would really love to know more about that. because that's what I like to provide for you guys. And leaving a comment also helps the channel. It helps this information get out to more people. It helps me in an energy exchange. You know, if you subscribe, if you have a notification, you'll always get to know when new videos come out. So this is a nice way where you can support me too. All right, my friends, remember that you can get that Understanding Human Design Transits video training if you want to. The way to get it will be here at the end of the video, and then it'll also be down in the description. All right, many blessings, much love. Bye for now.